So,
Yeah.
uh, well, cool, man. I'm looking forward to delving into your world as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you taking a minute out. But before we get to that point, I want to know 4 years ago, with the whole pandemic, we didn't know how long it was going to last, the ramifications, and everybody reacted differently. Florida was a different animal from the other parts of the country. So, how did you ultimately make it through the pandemic, and how did it change the way that you do business now?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I was not running this business then, but the organization that I was a part of, it was everyone freaking out. And as a leader in the organizations I was running, it was the weirdest time because it was like everyone was pissed at you. And so, as a leader, you have to be used to people not agreeing with you because that's how you move things forward. It was just unique that no one agreed with you at that point. So, I think it was just being mindful of having the non-anxious response in a time of anxiety because so many people just had lots of anxiety for great reasons, right? To have that anxiety, whether it was health, I had friends who lost family members, or whether it was economic, right? Where people losing businesses. I was a part of a group that had started a coffee shop 6 months before the pandemic. And so the coffee shop was built off of a come and stay and hang out kind of vision. And then it was like, no, you can't come hang out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely a challenge.
So what kind of history do you have of dealing with people that just don't agree and you have to really kick in that leadership? How did those instincts kick in for you to know what to do during that time?
Um, I don't know that they did. So what I would just say, from my journey in leadership, recognizing first and foremost, we have to have a solid vision that we're all pulling for, right? And what happened during that time in that season was there was almost a turning over of any vision that any organization had and having to figure out the new paradigm. So to me, the first thing was making sure we were all still aligned on what's our mission, like what are we going after, and then creating options. I am a planner by nature, not necessarily an anal retentive planner, but I'm a hey, if this is the goal, what are three options we could have to get there? And so just starting to make new plans. I remember, the week before everything shut down, going to my team and saying, "Hey, this COVID thing, it's looking like it's getting worse. We need to have some options." So that was Monday, and I was like, "Go give me some options by Wednesday, Thursday, and then by Friday, of course, the whole world shut down." So it was like I think just being able to have that non-anxious response, but keep everyone on vision
Yeah.
and then make the plans that were necessary. So,
So let me ask you this. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day to get a
yeah,
proper handle on what you do every day for a living. One of the
yeah,
kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's
yeah.
your answer?
So I help people and organizations increase, multiply, and thrive in
Okay.
what they do. Mhm.
So when you were in that position in the third grade, what was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
A fighter pilot.
Okay. Did you pursue flying?
Until about my junior year of high school.
Okay.
So I went to a military high school in Central Florida, and then it just was not, my path at that
Yeah.
point. So yeah.
So tell me how you got to this place. What were the seeds that were planted early on to have this business acumen, to have this entrepreneurial spirit, and how did it evolve into who you are today?
I think way back to I was the kid in middle school who went to the little Jiffy Mart and bought a bunch of blow pops for 25 cents and at lunch I was your fix. So you paid me $1 for that blow pop. And I don't know where that came from. That was just like there. In high school, I started mowing lawns. And, I started with one, started with two, got to three. I had a friend that had 2 or 3 yards. So we were like, let's do this together. And then we ended up with like 15 to 20 yards a week. So at that point, it's a small business, right? And so I don't think there's some people who they just think, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I never thought that way. I just kind of did things.
Yeah.
And sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't work, but sometimes they worked. And it was like, oh, okay, I enjoy this. This is fun. And I enjoy the process of kind of putting the system together and getting everyone rallied together going in that direction. And so I think that's kind of where it started off. I'm a high extrovert, so I love people.
Yeah.
And it's fun seeing people win
Yeah.
together, right?
Yeah.
Like ultimately that's what successful business is. It's winning. And when we get together with people and we're winning, that's a great feeling. So just trying to keep that going for, whether it's my own business or, at this point, the businesses that I get the chance to work with. I get to come in on all kinds of different things I typically do team development, strategic planning, profitability consulting, right? So, I'm coming in and you're about to lose 2 or 3 team members, which as the business owner, that could cost you $150,000 on that turnover. And, we come out and 2 months later, everyone's like high-fiving, working together, loving what they're doing. The business owner's happy because they saved 150 grand and didn't have to deal with the turnover factor. So, I think it was just in the early days, those things just kind of happened and just having ideas and not being afraid to go and do something about those ideas.
So you have to lay out a blueprint for these companies to get them to a better place.
Yeah.
And, we kind of treat business almost like sport in America in the
Yeah.
capitalistic venture. There's this adrenaline, there's the Jeff Bezos, and there's all these people. But what's the business model that you admire the most from top down that you emulate or you think
Oh,
works?
gosh. You know, I don't know that I could just choose one. To me, I think they're context dependent.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I think it depends on the leader, and I think it depends on the idea that the leader has. You think of Steve Jobs, and what he did with Apple. I mean, at one point he got kicked out of his own company, right? Yet he's got this amazing idea. I think contextually, when he got kicked out, he was still so many years ahead of where everyone else was. They couldn't see it, but he got some time to go and do some other, side gigs like Pixar.
Right.
Like whose side gig is Pixar, right? So he got to do some of those things. It refined him, but I think it also let the rest of the culture catch up to him enough to where he had the prescience to say, we're going to create things that people don't even know that they need. And we're going to do that in a way that is simple enough for them to engage with the product once they get it. And so contextually, I think it just mattered when he did that, and how he did that. And I've read stuff on him where he wanted small meetings, not a lot of people in there. But then you see other successful businesses where they've got huge meetings, lots of people, lots of meetings. I think that I've read something about that with the CEO for Microsoft. And so you've got these two companies that are clearly both doing well, and what they've done. So to me, and this is kind of the approach I take in my business, I'm much more of a boutique customized approach. I want to have time with the leader. I want to have time with the organization. And then we're going to craft something that's really unique and specific for you so that you're not trying to put on someone else's clothes and they don't fit well.
So who's been that hero for you, that inspiration in your job world?
Yeah, I would say Patrick Lencioni. He runs a consulting company called the Table Group. They do all kinds of leadership development, consulting, that kind of stuff. And I just resonate. First of all, his writing style is fantastic. He writes, if you're not familiar with him, he writes a little parable. And then from that parable, he's got the actual principle he's working on in there. So, he's written a couple of books, Death by Meeting. I mean, people hate meetings. And his take on that is that's because you're doing the wrong kind of meetings and you have no purpose to the meetings. So get a plan for your meetings and then your meetings will work for you, right? So stuff like that is simple enough and then applicable enough. So definitely Patrick Lencioni.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find inspirational, who
Yeah.
would it be? Would it be
I
him?
I'd probably meet Pat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what exactly would you want to know? If you could just ask a couple questions, what would you
Mhm.
want to know?
Hmm. From Pat, what would I want to know? Uh, so now with all of his success, right? What are still the challenges that he's working to overcome today at this point in his business, kind of in his life and his ventures? Um, That'd probably be the biggest one that I just enjoy hearing. And maybe a follow-up to that would be whatever that biggest obstacle he faced kind of in the journey was and how he overcame.
So at this point in your job life, what is it that gets you up every day? What is it that consistently makes you do the best job you can do, but also save enough to evolve as a human being yourself?
Sure. I live 5 blocks from the beach. That
I get it.
I so Cresso Consulting is my business. Cresso is Latin for to increase, multiply, and thrive. And I kind of, as I shared earlier, I've just always been drawn to people. And when I see people in a place where they're thriving, that brings me alive, right? And to go into a situation with maybe an entrepreneur who has a great idea and they've been kind of running this business thing, right? But they're good at their great idea. The accountant sends them the P&L every month, and they're like, "Oh, this is a fun bunch of numbers, right?" To see them go from that place of just, "Hey, we're just holding on, and today we're going to make it," to being able to make strategic decisions for the future and understand how their decisions today are going to impact what's happening a year from now, and see the stress relief come off of them when they realize, oh, I am in control of this. My system is set up to get the exact results that it's getting right now. And so I can make changes, right? I don't have to take the mindset of, this business isn't going to be profitable for 3 years or whatever, starting out. Like I can choose to plan for it to be profitable within the first 6 months. And so to see them thrive, to see them come alive, that really for me is what I love about what I get to do.
So you get to put a blueprint out, you get to put guideposts to help them get to a better place. In
Sure.
your life, what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Seek to understand before being understood. I had a great leader who really just instilled that to me. And, it kind of goes to maybe even a little bit of where we are as a country as a whole today. In some senses, we're so eager to get our thoughts and ideas out there that listening is kind of a little bit of a lost art. Um, and, for me, I've high energy person. I was especially younger, really just I had to get my ideas out there. Everyone had to know about my ideas. And I had a great mentor who over the course of a couple of years really worked with me on that to understand your ideas are going to be even better if you really understand the people that you're dealing with and what their actual needs are. And you're only going to do that if you seek to understand them before putting your ideas out there.
Yeah, that's pretty wise. What's been one of your favorite client success stories? Maybe one that you grew the most
Yeah.
or you had a revelation. What was that client for you?
Yeah, for sure. So, one of my favorite clients, Skylark AVL, or Skylark AV. So they do large installations of audio, video, lighting equipment. Um, and so they've got a team of engineers that basically work to design the projects, and then they've got a team that installs the projects. And this is construction industry, so from time to time things can get a little tense. And they had some of that tension. And one of the assessments that I use, it's actually from Patrick Lencioni's group. It's called the Working Genius. We did a workshop with them, and the way I lead the workshop, I don't tell them anything. I let them discover on their own kind of what's going on within their assessments and who they are as a team. And as we got through to the back half, the light bulbs started going on for this team where they realized and took ownership. For some of them, they were like, hey, you're upset with us because we're doing this thing, right? In this case, it was they were putting their plans together in a certain way. And the guy implementing was like, yeah, I just need a fully complete set of drawings, right? And the design engineers were creating the drawings that way because they wanted to leave them some room in the field to be creative. And so, oftentimes on a team, we think someone else is doing something just to be a jerk to us. And when they all realized, no, they were actually trying to like be mindful and thoughtful of each other, they were all like, oh, well, we can just make some small adjustments. And I talked to the CEO maybe 3 or 4 months after that, and I was just asking him, hey, how's that going? And he said to me, oh, I forgot that was even a thing. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of one of those situations where you look at it, and for me as a consultant, it's a double-edged sword because you're going to hire me because I'm going to come in and solve your problems. But then I'm not going to have any more work because your problems are going to go away, right?
Yeah.
But to me, the even bigger picture of that was how many times employees experience just that little bit of rub, that tension, and then they just leave, right? Or that rub, that tension, they get fired. And how empowering it was for them as the leaders of the business to now have employees who had worked things out and who had grown together and who had realized, hey, I don't have to always be upset with the other people in my work. I can understand them a little bit more. And so, there was a growth within the business itself, but there was the opportunity for those individuals to have leaders above them who cared enough to bring someone in to help them take those steps. So that one for me is pretty fun.
So overall in your career and everything that you've done and evolved into up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
Ooh, gosh. I don't know that I can pick one. There've been so many. I was on a podcast earlier in the year and they were asking me about my business. Man, I'm really proud of it, even though I don't quite know how it's kind of taken off. It just kind of has, right? But they asked me, oh, what pushed you to finally go out and do this? And I said, I think I've tried it probably 3 or 4 times. This time it just stuck, and I really took the risk to go out. And so to know that, hey, here I am on my own, making it successful for my family, but also successful for the clients that I work with, and they are pleased with the work that's happening. that's been pretty great and pretty special, different from doing that for other people. And, I've had the opportunity to do things. I started a really awesome coffee shop out here in Jacksonville Beach. Got featured in voters. And so like that was great and exciting, but that was for somebody else. My business here, this is for my family, for the legacy for my family. And so that's probably it for me right now.
So if you had a dream tonight, ran into a younger version of you, an 18-year-old version, and you
Yeah,
could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've led, the wisdom you've gained along the way, what
sure.
advice would you impart, and would that version of you listen?
That's so funny because I would probably tell him to listen more. And I do think he would listen. I think that's something for me when I was younger. When I went and got my first master's degree, that was really more than the subject matter. Like I learned how to learn at that point in my life. I had gone into my undergraduate with a full ride scholarship, and so I did well academically in high school, but I wasn't engaged in learning. I was just showing up, getting the piece of paper because everyone said that's what you needed. Um, and so my first 2 years were difficult because I didn't do a lot of showing up in my undergraduate time. So it was uh, coming out of that and then going at, 24, 25, doing that master's degree. It was, oh, I now know how to learn, and I actually enjoy this. I get better at this and listening to other voices and reading unique things. And so um I would have told my younger self, start doing that earlier, right? But what is that? It's listening. It's listening to others for sure.
So at the end of the day, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm someone that has a unique ability to come in and come alongside people and help them achieve their dream. Um, to understand you, maybe as an entrepreneur, you have a vision. My job's not to come in and give you a new vision. And I don't want to do that. I think you have something unique to contribute. And so for me, I think that's the ability to come alongside, hear you, hear that vision, and give you some options on ways to achieve that are unique to you. Not, and it may not be the way that I would do it, right? I'm probably not going to recommend you do something the way I would do it if we're very different. But I think my perception of me is someone who will come in and come alongside of, as opposed to just trying to overlay a model or something that worked somewhere else or for somewhere else, or even something that worked for me before. But coming alongside, and that's really, I talked about Cresso meaning to increase, multiply, and thrive. When I sat down and made my business plan, what do I want to do? I want to help people thrive, and so I see that happen.
So that's a perfect lead in to if anyone wants to reach out, hire you, learn more about what you're doing, the
Yeah.
good business, where do they go?
CressoConsulting.com, Cresso with two S's. So Cresso Consulting.com. That's my website. You can go there, you can see kind of services, see about me, you can see testimonials from people that have worked with me, and fill out a little form, and I'll get back to you.
I love it, man. This has been great. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the sunshine out there.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you.